Ladies and gentlemen, we are live! Who the fuck is that guy?
I love you! My balls are hot.
Yes, hello everybody, hello and welcome to another beautiful episode of Across the Cage. My name is Stefan and thank you for joining me on this beautiful Tuesday evening, 7:47 p.m. on the 10th of September. Jesus Christ, have I been put through the ringer in regards to these bloody technical issues. I apologise for not giving my preview out last week for UFC 242. And a big shout out to JPED on Instagram, loyal follower of Across the Cage, and he's pointed out to me on a couple of occasions we've had some technical difficulties at times, and he's been quick to sort of turn around and let me know. And it was quite frustrating last week, setting it all up. Big preview. Had some really, really good talking points. And unfortunately, we had an audio error, some technical difficulties. I do apologize for those hanging out for my preview to UFC 242. But nonetheless, we push on. And what a contest it was between Khabib and Poirier. Great weekend of fights. I'm not going to waste anyone's time here, but firstly, thank you for asking me. I'm doing quite well, thank you. A little bit exhausted over the weekend, a little bit exhausted that card, waking up at that card to watch that card over in Abu Dhabi. For us here in Australia, the card started at 12 a.m. 12 a.m. the early prelim start, and as you know, I've mentioned it many times before, I'm a complete degenerate for this sort of stuff. So I woke up at 12, chucked an all-nighter, stayed up till 4 5 a.m. To watch the fights, so I can equip myself to have discussions with not just you, the people, but anybody that I come across, whether it's at work or at sport, at the gym, whatever. So I can, I guess, give my point of view of things and chat shit nonetheless. But before I jump into UFC 242, just quickly wanted to touch on Bellator 226. I know that not many people probably turned around and watched Bellator 226, but to be honest with you, the main event was an anti-climax, if you want to call it that, with Ryan Bader and Chet Congo going through to a no contest, which means that Ryan Bader has successfully defended his heavyweight championship, which makes him the first champion in Bellator history to defend two titles in two different weight classes. So congratulations to Ryan Bader. But nonetheless, it was an absolute shit show in that main event. And the attempt of Rampage Jackson jumping into the octagon to want to take on Ryan Bader was just capped off an horrendous, half an hour for that main event in the heavyweight division. Now, the positive to come out of the Bellator 226 was the kickoff of the featherweight Grand Prix, which I thought was really exciting. So Derek Campos and I think was, and what's his name? Adam Borix were probably the two guys, in my opinion, that I guess are the ones to look out for in this featherweight tournament. Now, again, not many people know them. I don't personally know them. Only judging off the notes that I've written down in regards to watching some of the Bellator card. They're the two fighters that I think are potential to take the whole tournament out. But that's probably the most exciting thing that's happening in Bellator at the moment. So that's Bellator 226 for you. Ryan Bader, I would assume now they're going to try and set up with Rampage Jackson. Crazy to think that Rampage Jackson is still fighting, but again, I don't know what it is about with these older fighters. They just can't break away. They can't break away from the sport. So that's that. UFC 242. I'll start as usual, run through the card from bottom to top. And if I have butchered anybody's name, I do apologize. I know all of the fighters on this card listen to this podcast, so I do apologize if they get offended by my blah 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 by my pronunciation. Let's start off in the lightweight division. Don Mage defeated Faris Ziam via decision. Omari Akhmedov defeated Zach Cummings via decision. Muslim Salikov defeated Nordin Taleb via TKO in the first round. Bilal Muhammad defeated Takashi Sato via submission in the second round. In the prelims, we had Ottoman Azaitar defeating Timu Pakalin via TKO in the first. Sarah Morais defeating Lillian Jujar via TKO in the third. Then we had Joanne Calderwood defeating Andrea Lee via decision. And then to the main card, Diego Ferrer defeating Maribek Taisumov via decision. Curtis Blades, dominant victory against Shamil Abdurakhimov via TKO of ground and pound in the second round. And in my preview, I did mention that that's most likely what was going to happen. It was either going to go to a brutal decision for Curtis Blades, or he was going to knock out Abdurakhimov via the ground and pound strikes. Because Curtis Blades and it's so frustrating that this... Anyway, I said my view on Curtis Blades is that I feel like he's version 2.0 of Cain Velasquez. I think that, Curtis Blades moves around probably like a middleweight / light heavyweight. The wrestling that he has reminds me so much of Cain. He keeps the pace and he's got cardio for days. So once he sort of gets you down, takes you down, if you get into that position... if he mounts you, that ground and pound, there's no coming back from that. I feel like Curtis Blades' mount, if he mounts you and ground and pound, is very similar to the one-punch power of Francis Ngannou. Once you're in that position, it's game over. So, dominant victory for Curtis Blades. Islam Makhachev defeated Davi Ramos via decision. Paul Felder defeating Edson Barbosa. Paul the Dragon Felder defeating Edson Barbosa via decision. What a win for Paul Felder. I was surprised. I scored at 29-28 times 3 times 3. I scored at 29-28 Paul Felder. It was very interesting to see. One had 30-27. And then 30-27 the other way. It just didn't make any sense. The judging on that was off, way off. But I do think that Paul Felder definitely won that fight. And what a win it is for him. Edson Barbosa is kind of stuck in a bit of a lull at the moment. Very, very hard to sort of judge where he goes in that lightweight division. Paul Felder, that would mean that he would jump up to, I would assume, 7. Edson Barbosa is ranked 7. I would assume he jumps up to 7, and everyone else sort of slides their way down. Who knows? Paul Felder could potentially get... Well, you got Cerrone and Gaethje fighting this weekend, so he's right there. He could potentially get the winner of that, or McGregor could get the winner of that too. So maybe Felder gets the loser of that one, and McGregor gets the winner of that one. There's so many options for McGregor. It's ridiculous. And that again, this lightweight division is absolutely it's stacked, absolutely stacked. And then the main event. Khabib Nurmagomedov defeating Dustin the Diamond Poirier via submission in the third round. Where do I start? Now, do I start with Dustin or do I start with my assessment of Khabib? Okay, let's start with Dustin. If you do not like Dustin Poirier on and in and out of the octagon, then I think that you've got issues. Dustin Poirier is the perfect example of a role model for somebody that is wanting to is an up and comer in the fight game in the mixed martial arts world. The way that he presents himself outside of the octagon, if you don't get emotional in that post fight interview, then you don't have a heart. It honestly brought me tears to my eyes just witnessing the emotion that Dustin Poirier went through, and I strongly think that he went to this camp prepared, but on fight night, it just seemed as though those tiny windows of opportunity, when they present themselves, especially against Khabib, you need to take them. And in this instance, there was maybe two instances in the second round and in the third. The second round where there was probably a flurry of about roughly a minute. Where Dustin clipped Khabib and was piling on the pressure, and then obviously in the third attempting that guillotine choke that did seem quite tight, but besides that, it was all Khabib. I thought Dustin definitely looked prepared for the fight, but as I said, those little tiny windows of opportunity against somebody as dominant as Khabib and somebody like Khabib who doesn't make many mistakes, you need to take them. So it's interesting to see. It's interesting to see post fight, and I had this in the news segment, the trending news segment. But Dustin Poirier after the fight, sort of talking about his fighting career and how it's a little bit uncertain. I was very surprised by that because, you know, he's still quite young. He's 30, and he's still an amazing fighter, you know. He's now going to go down as a champion, as a UFC champion, whether it's interim or not. He's still going to go down as a UFC champion. He does come out and say that he'll be haunted by this loss for the rest of his life. But I do feel like, again, this is all part of the journey for Dustin. I feel like Dustin will work his way back towards another title shot, and he will be the fully fledged lightweight champion of the world one day. Again, he's still very young in his career, although it seems like he's been fighting for such a long time. He's still only 30 years old. So depending on what he wants to do moving forward, he's turned around and said, "Thank you guys for your support. It means a lot to me. If I choose to fight again, I'll be back strong. If not, I'll see what God has in store for me." So I hope and pray and touch wood that he continues to fight, because I still think he's an absolutely world-class fighter, and he will one day become a UFC champion. It's just not in the era of Khabib, because that's what we're living in right now. We're living in the era of Khabib. And as a Conor McGregor fan and a Conor McGregor dick rider, it is extremely hard for me to sort of say that. But at the same time, I have to take the bias away from it, and you have to respect the dominance of Khabib and how skillful he is. And every single time, he's become one of those champions. Every single time he comes to fight, it's very similar to Floyd Mayweather. You tune in because you can potentially see... you're tuning in because this could be it. This could be it. He could be losing his own. He could be losing. This is it. Dustin's gonna win. This is it. Conor's gonna win. This is it. Tony's gonna win. And Khabib just proves this time and time again why he should be considered as one of the sport's pound for pound greatest of all time. The last 3-4 fights now that he's had. It's just a testament to how dominant he is. Obviously, he's beaten Dustin. He's beaten McGregor. Before that, you know, obviously he beat Iquinza over 5, and then before that it was Barbosa. Then you had Michael Johnson and Dos Anjos. These aren't easy beats. He's 28-0. His record speaks for itself. Dustin, McGregor, Iquinta, Barbosa, Johnson, and then Dos Anjos after that. The only fight to make now in this, I think there's two. I think you got two options. With this. Khabib versus Tony has to be the next fight. Khabib versus Tony has to be the next fight. The observations that I made, on the weekend was that there's still tiny windows of opportunity that you can't, especially against somebody as unorthodox as Tony Ferguson. You can't give up those opportunities. And it's going to be interesting to see, because the game plan that everybody has had going into versing Khabib is that avoid the takedown. Okay, if you get taken down, try and stand it up and get onto the feet. That hasn't worked. For anybody, that hasn't worked. That hasn't worked at all. Throughout the later stages of the rounds, when we talk about the fight against McGregor and the Iaquinta fight, there were instances where Khabib slowed down a little bit, and he wasn't getting as many takedowns as possible. Against Tony, he probably welcomes to be taken down. He probably want to be welcome to take him down, because I cannot find or think of anybody that fights so well off their back. Tony can put in absolute work off his back, elbows, punches, slaps, submissions, you name it. From any angle possible, Tony can put you in a submission. And what happened on the weekend? The biggest, I guess, adversity that he had on the weekend was fighting off that guillotine choke from Dustin. It did seem like it was sunken in. It was sunken in, and Khabib was fighting out of it, which obviously he did, and he did that well, and then got the submission after that. But against Tony, you can't do that. You cannot do that against Tony Ferguson. The second fighter who I think could give Khabib some trouble is Nate Diaz. I think Nate Diaz again hasn't been knocked out and hasn't been submitted. Has he been submitted? I don't think he's been submitted at all. Let me just check his record. Nate Diaz, Wikipedia. So let's go down to his record. Okay, so he has been knocked out once by Josh Thompson, head kick and punches, but never been submitted. I lie. He lost one. This is back in 2006 via armbar. He lost. Well, I lost my voice whilst he lost via submission to an armbar. But I think since then, he has just his game. I mean, that's 2006. You know, that's 13 years ago now. 13 years ago, and he's a completely different fighter from 13 years ago. So I think those two, and I also think dark horse, if it comes to that stage, because who knows how long Khabib's going to fight for. Grigor Gillespie is another one of those fighters where I feel like he's a ridiculous wrestler, and he's reminds me a lot of Curtis Blades with his ground and pound. So it'd be a really, really good contest in terms of wrestling. But I think the fight that you have to make is Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. I am not interested, and I don't care what backlash I get. I think I'm the only person in the MMA community that doesn't give a fuck about Khabib versus GSP. I do not want to see that fight, nor do I want to entertain that fight at all. GSP is 38 years old. More. He's older than 38. He's about 57. He's a pterodactyl, 57 or something like that. No, he's not 57. I am not impressed by your performance. 38, so I was right. Okay, he's 38 years old. If GSP was coming in and GSP was the same GSP that was absolutely dominating everybody in 2013, then I would absolutely entertain that. I would love to see that, because they will both be in their prime. I do not at all want to see Khabib versus GSP, because I predict Khabib just absolutely wrestle fucking GSP. I don't think GSP has the answer, especially at 38 years old, especially after lengthy layoffs. Regardless of his win streak at the moment, regardless of he was had the most title defenses at welterweight. Regardless of what he's done in the sport, I do not think that he is any match at all for Khabib at this stage of his career. I do not want to entertain it. I don't want to see it. Khabib versus Tony, Khabib versus Nate, Khabib versus Grigor Gillespie. Now, it's funny you mentioned that. I don't even mention McGregor, because I don't think that's there at the moment. I don't think that's on the table. And that's that. What I'm going to do now is head over to some news. Beautiful. All right. this kind of just piggybacks off before we leave. We fully leave UFC 242. This kind of piggybacks off of this event. Dana White comes out and says Conor McGregor will fight Khabib next if Tony Ferguson refuses. Look, that I feel like now, and I probably should have said this before I jumped to the news. I feel like now, how do I put this? Okay, the Khabib versus McGregor fight is put now in the same bucket as McGregor versus Diaz 3. I think regardless of the circumstances, regardless of when and whether there's a title or there's no title or what weight class, I think that fight will always be there. So I think the priority should be, the first thing is bank those two fights up, get McGregor back into the octagon and get him back winning. I think once you do that, and I think that I think the perfect way you play it out, I think you give him the winner of Cowboy versus Cowboy versus Gaethje on the weekend. Because I guarantee you, I will put any amount of money in the world that whoever wins that fight on the weekend is going to call out Conor McGregor. And they're going to fish for that fight. Why? That's the big money. It's a big money fight. And if they cop a loss, doesn't matter. They've banked. They've made bank. So I think that should be McGregor's next opponent, the winner of that fight. There's no way that Tony will. There's no way Tony's going to turn around and refuse this fight. This is next for Tony. Tony is the savior of everybody that wants to see Khabib lose. And I think that you bank up those fights. You bank up the Khabib fight. You bank up the Nate Diaz fight for McGregor, and get McGregor to put in there somebody else. Now McGregor after the fight, simply just put it, book my place, book my rematch in Moscow now. Now, do you want to get shot, McGregor? Is that what you want? Do you want to go to Moscow and not make it out alive? Regardless of security, regardless of any of that, I think in Moscow, if you go to Moscow, you will get shot. You don't want any of that Russian smoke. You don't want any of that Russian smoke at all. Because Khabib runs the show. Now, my rating for UFC 242, because I know everyone fangs out for my ratings because they are unique and they are great. Now, I really enjoyed the event. I thought it was highly entertaining. You had everything. The timing of the event here in Australia was a little bit shit. I'm not going to lie. I'm still recovering from sleep. But what I am going to do is I'm going to rate this one out of the Emirati Arab Dirham. And I give this fight card out of Abu Dhabi. I give this fight card an 8.7 Emirati Arab Dirham out of 10 Emirati Arab Dirham. So that's an 8.7 Emirati Arab Dirham out of 10. Thank you so much for putting on a great show at UFC 242. We push on to Gaethje versus Cowboy, which is next weekend, which I will cover on Thursday, pending some technical issues. Barbosa's manager plans to appeal the UFC 242 loss. We wouldn't complain if it was 29-28 Felder, which is testament to my point. I thought it was. I scored it 29-28 Felder. I think that would have made it fair. But Alex Davis, Edson Barbosa's managers, come out and said, we think that the fight was judged inaccurately. The fact that one judge gave it 30-27 to Barbosa and one have it 30-27 for Felder is a big indicator of their confusion. Our perception, and to everyone we spoke with, everyone in the arena, every journalist and media, the fight was 29-28 for Barbosa, who won the first two rounds. Oh, of course he's going to say that because Barbosa's manager. We think Barbosa won 2 rounds to 1, but we wouldn't complain if it was 29-28 Felder. Nothing against Paul Felder. He's a great fighter, a great person, his whole team. But I think Barbosa did a great fight and will contest this. So give me a time. Well, there's been multiple times you can probably tell me, but I haven't heard of a story, especially when it comes to decisions like this, with a fight being overturned. I haven't seen it. Even that Megan Anderson issue against Kat Zingano with the fight where she got cut in the eyelash or the eyelid from the toe. That was even more controversial than this, and the fight wasn't overturned. So I'm not hopeful that this will be overturned, and I don't want it to be overturned because Paul Felder deserves this win. He fought an amazing fight, and this to me was my fight of the night. That's it for UFC 242. I did close it off a little bit too early, but we roll on. Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz has been scheduled to headline UFC 244 out of MSG. Now, I believe this was supposed to be headlined by Usman versus Covington, but they couldn't come to an agreement, so they've pushed on for Diaz versus Masvidal. Dana White's turned around and said that they're fighting for the coveted baddest motherfucker titleship, baddest motherfucker title. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the baddest motherfucker title. Because what world are we living in? Are we living in MMA world, or are we living in the WWE fantasy world? I'm all for the fight. The fight's extremely exciting and will definitely sell decent pay-per-views. And I definitely think this is deserving of a 5-round fight and main event of a pay-per-view. But I don't think you need to put the stigma around the baddest motherfucker belt and carry it like. You don't need to get into that world. Once you start getting into that world, it's all fantasy, it's all play, and I'm not a fan of that. The reason why. There's WWE fans, and then there's a reason why there's the mixed martial arts fans, because the mixed martial arts is the element of it's real. It is real, and I know that. Speaking from a WWE fan, it's still real to me. Damn it, it's still real to me. Damn it, but I just think that once you start getting into these fantasy belts and all this, I just think it just. I don't know, it just puts a little bit of a funny feel on the fight, and it just makes it all a gimmick rather than serious fight business. I think the winner of this fight definitely deserves to have a shot at Kamaru Usman, or Colby. I know Colby's been talking absolute shit to Masvidal, and they were former friends and teammates and whatever. But I just think that the winner of this fight, and I'm very surprised for Nate Diaz to have a quick turnaround like this. And I was hoping that he had this quick turnaround. Has a legitimate chance of fighting for the belt next. Once you start putting this baddest motherfucker belt and blah blah blah, just like I said, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it at all. I'm happy you can promote that. 100% you can promote it as these two fighters are fighting for the baddest motherfucker, the title of the baddest motherfucker on the planet. But once you get fake belts and whatnot involved, it just seems a little bit gimmicky. But nonetheless, I'm really, really excited for the fight. What has happened? Sorry, I forgot to mention where it was at. So this, Madison Square Garden, and it is on. Where is it going to be? UFC 244. Was it November 4th? November 3rd. Over in the States. Jorge Masvidal. What a card that is. That has become Stack City. Masvidal versus Diaz to main event. Co-main event, Derek Lewis versus Blagoy Ivanov. Corey Anderson versus Johnny Walker. Caitlin Chukagi will probably defeat Jennifer Maia. And you've got Kelvin Gastelum and Darren Till on this fight card as well. Kelvin Gastelum, Darren Till. What a fight. That should be higher up on the card. That shouldn't be the first fight. I don't even know if that's scheduled, but that should be higher up on the card. Fuck, what a stacked card. That's awesome. Definitely can sell. But oh my god, the CTE is coming out again. This can definitely sell. I'm going to guess probably around 300 to 500,000 pay-per-view buys. Just how deep the fight card is. But very excited to see that one play out. Just on the back of that, Masvidal asked Dwayne The Rock Johnson to to put the BMF, the bad motherfucker title, around his waist at UFC 244. And he's replied, Mr. Rock, Mr. Dwayne Johnson has come out and said, so I'll start off with Jorge. So he's turned around and said, at The Rock, I'm telling Dana White, I want you to put it around my waist 305 all day. # super necessary. And The Rock responded saying, doing all I can to make this fight. If I can and you win, I'll put the belt around your waist at MSG. Consider it done. Already shaping up to be one of the biggest and most electrifying fights in UFC history. Can't wait. And then tag both the fighters and then # respect, # BMF, # UFC 244. That'd be exciting to see The Rock there. It'd be exciting to see that. You know what? I want to see The Rock fighting in the UFC. I want to see The Rock take on Francis Ngannou. That's what I want to see. Nowitzki, step aside, brother. I want The Rock to fight Francis Ngannou. That's what I want. I want him to go in there and cut. Please, somebody make a meme of The Rock's face. I'll make it. Put The Rock's face on Nate Diaz's body and calling out, "Hey Ngannou, you've taken everything I worked for, motherfucker." Funny as shit. Junior Dos Santos, JDS, taking on Alexander Volkov in UFC Moscow main event. Isn't it funny that we just had a lot of Russians fighting this Abu Dhabi card, and they've got a card in Moscow in November, and I don't think there's many Russians on it, to be honest with you. UFC Moscow, which takes place. That's incorrect. That's the old one. UFC Fight Night 163 is what we want to see. UFC Fight Night 163. I need to get picture in picture, or just get a screen put up here to show you what I'm looking at. Jesus Christ! And this is the 10th of November. So the first fight card after UFC 244. This is taking place in the CSKA Arena in Moscow. And as I said, there's not many fights that have been announced in this fight card so far. So, interesting fight. I would have thought that, and I think Curtis Blades said this in his post-fight interview, I would have thought that Dos Anjos versus Curtis Blades would have been a great fight. So I think the winner of this fight takes on Curtis Blades, depending on the rankings, because I think Dos Anjos is higher than obviously Dos Santos is higher. Yes, so Dos Anjos is ranked one higher than Curtis Blades. So I think what happens here, if Dos Anjos wins, he keeps his number 3 spot, and he'll probably take on Curtis Blades next. Or maybe in Ngannou rematch, Volkov wins, he'll jump up to 3rd, the number 3 in the world. Probably take on Curtis Blades as well. Probably call out Francis Ngannou as well, I would assume. No one's calling out DC because who knows what's going to happen with DC next. But nonetheless, really interesting fight over at heavyweight. Interesting fight over at heavyweight. I think that's it. I think I've blabbered on enough. I don't think there's anything else to really go through here. It was a bit of a slow news week in regards to everything outside of the octagon. Nothing really happens unless McGregor's assaulting somebody or calling somebody out. There's no real controversies or anything like that, which is a good thing in a way. It gives me time to, I guess, analyze other things more so than just the fight cards on the weekend and the news. What I'd like to do moving forward with the podcast is I'd like to, I guess, have little segments where I like to give my, I guess you can call them little opinion pieces, where I think that, let's say for example, this is brainstorming 101, the transparency of brainstorming 101 with Across the Cage. I think potentially things. I'd love to get you guys involved as well. So things like top 5 lightweights or top 5 finishes, top 5 submissions. Putting myself in Sean Shelby's shoes and putting myself in Dana White's shoes, doing those little things. I think getting creative with the podcast, because I do think that, I would absolutely love to get more of you guys involved with the podcast, more so than what you guys are doing now. Because again, like I mentioned every single week, the support that we get from the podcast is insane, and it means a lot to me, because I absolutely love you guys and I love the podcast. I love doing this shit. So thank you so much. Probably shouldn't disrespect myself by calling it shit, but that's what it is here here in Western Sydney, we will like to refer to things as shit, even though they're not actually shit. Stupid dynamic here in Western Sydney, but it is what it is. All right, I'm not going to blabber anymore. Thank you so much for tuning in to Across the Cage. I've been Stefan. You've been listening. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on Thursday. Take care. Ciao.